let's get going. Hour number 3. Glad to have you on board tonight. David Icke is standing by. Hope he's sitting by very early in the UK. And we're going to talk about some fascinating things this hour, as we always do. David, welcome. Glad you're up. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. Good evening, whatever.
It's morning here, I can tell you.
Yes, well, it's 4 a.m. is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, God. On the homepage at Rense, if you look on the left-hand side, you've seen the banner there with David's name on it. And I want you all, when you get a chance, 10 minutes, just go and look at this. It's an excerpt of an interview David recently did about AI. And the title of it is, "This Will Be Your Existence Within 10 Years or Less." It's happening at such speed, it is mind-boggling. AI. A lot of people walking around, you can tell by looking at them, wouldn't know AI if it ran them down. But AI is coming, whether we like it or not. And according to David's overview of it and his analysis, within around 10 years or so, there's a very good chance that the majority of people will be connected to AI, having been sold on the concept that it'll make you a super intelligent person, when in reality, it will do the opposite. It will take away so much. It's a big story, David. Tell us more.
Well, it's in many ways, Jeff, it's the endgame, because this has been moving in a certain direction for a long, long time. One of the big penny drops for me over the last 30 years has been to see that there is a force, I would say ultimately not human, that has been orchestrating humanity on a journey to its own complete enslavement. What you've had is the development of humans to become intellectually intelligent enough to build their own prison, but not wise enough to see that that's what they're doing.
True.
If you gave computers, to use an analogy, Stone Age man, what would they do with it? They wouldn't know what it was. They wouldn't know how to use it. And what I'm saying, after looking at this over such a long period, is that the force that I'm talking about had the knowledge of computers and what we now call smart technology and AI, while humans were knocking rocks together. The takeover has taken a very long time, and it's been this process of controlling human perception and developing and manipulating and molding human perception to the point where, like I say, we can build the technology that enslaves us without realizing we're building the technology that enslaves us. So it's been a long journey. And of course, when we look at these from this perspective I'm talking about, when we look at these technologies now, you quite rightly say it's happening so fast. The reason it's happening so fast, or one of the foundation reasons, is technology is being developed so fast to become more and more able to control on a deeper and deeper level in terms of human perception.
That David, is the prime directive. The word control. Yeah. It's all about control. Very quickly, just as a quick aside, I had a brilliant nanotechnology scientist on a 3 weeks ago, and he laid out the issue of life as it really is, as you know, and as you've been presenting for 30-some years now. But he did it from a nanotech perspective, and he even included the fact that the tall blondes, for example, those who can pass for human, are here working with us in bio-nano and electro-nano and nano-nano, all kinds of different technologies. That's what you mentioned earlier, ultimately will be seen to have been non-human. They're here now. They're working amongst us. And it's almost unbelievable for most people. So that's how they get away with it, as you know.
Yeah, the bigger the gap between what's happening and what people can perceive is happening, the greater secrecy and ability you have to hide what you're doing, because people then wave their hand at the truth and say that's a nonsense, that's impossible. And the point I'm making, which relates to that, is that, you know, there aren't people sitting around a table strumming their fingers waiting for the next nerd to develop in some garage in Silicon Valley the next level of technology, which gives them the next level of control. What I'm saying, and it relates to what you've just said, is that this technology has been available all along, and it's being brought out into the public arena in a particular sequence. And I'm not saying all technology isn't developed by nerds. I'm saying the key transformation of society technology is being brought out. And to do that, they have to keep giving us cover stories for how it was found. I watched a BBC documentary on Silicon Valley. It wasn't very good because it was the BBC, but what it did have was this sequence of garage doors in California. And it was saying, as each garage door came up, this technology was developed by this behind this garage door. I'm seeing the elite saying, hey, fellas, hey, too many garage doors, okay? Change the cover story. Too many garage doors.
They wore it out.
This is being brought. Of course, we all know about the underground bases, the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, and this is where this interchange is taking place. So this stuff, when people like Ray Kurzweil at Google predict that AI will be connected to the human brain, or at least that will start by 2030, and he claims a 80% accuracy rate in predicting the development of technology. Well, I have to say, it's not too difficult to predict the unfolding of technology if you know the agenda for the unfolding of technology. It's actually quite straightforward to predict. And I say that this thing has been planned all along, and I call it in the books the assimilation of human consciousness through AI. And as I've asked a number of times in recent books and presentations, does anyone ask what AI is? Yes, okay, on one level it's algorithmic codes. Then you go to the next level where they talk about machine learning. But ultimately, what is AI? And what I'm saying is that this AI human connection is actually about, if you go deep in the rabbit hole, connecting this non-human force to the human mind so the human mind can be assimilated into it. And humans, instead of being free-thinking individuals, they become a hive mind to this non-human force. And all I need to do, Jeff, is quote Ray Kurzweil again, where he's saying by 2030, the human brain will be connected to AI. And what they're not telling you about, as you've already mentioned, is the nanotechnology. That's the real level of connection. They're talking about microchips you can see, but nanotechnology is really how they want to get into the brain.
Smart dust.
And then he says that when that connection's made, AI will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking as we know it now is basically negligible. This is not me. This is him being quoted here. So this is the process we're looking at. And it's so fantastic and so far out, as you point out, to the great majority of people that they would just say, come on. Well, no, you come on, because it's time to look at what's happening and open your mind to possibilities that have been systematically suppressed all your life.
David, we are about to be declared second-rate beings on this planet. AI will ultimately declare itself to be the superior intelligence on the planet. Doesn't die, doesn't get sick, doesn't have to worry about cancer. Limitless, self-replicating. It just has no obvious flaws. That's where it's going to end up. It'll take a little while, but it's going there. And one of the things that I heard recently that gave me particular cause to laugh for a moment or two was the story that they're trying now to teach AI morality and common sense. Now this is hilarious. Whose common sense? Whose morality is this AI going to be programmed with? That's the big question. So there you go.
It will be the morality, in quotes, of this controlling force. And you can start to pull together with this a lot of things that are happening in the world that don't appear to be on the face of it connected to what we're talking about. And I would bring up one straight away, which is the transgender hysteria. Where I'm coming from, as I've explained in the last book in some detail, we're heading towards not just the AI human. We are heading towards maybe a bit further, but not as far as people think, to the synthetic human. And right. The synthetic human will have no sexes. It will not be able to procreate in the way that humans do now. And basically, that's the world described by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World in the 1930s. And so what this whole, you see, I have a way of looking at the world, which says, what's the agenda? Answer, anything you can't have an alternative opinion about. Look around the society and look about world events. What can't you have an alternative opinion about? What do you get abuse and censorship for having an opinion about? And one of them, of course, is transgender. And what they've done, it's the foot in the door technique, as I call it. They give you an excuse to introduce the subject. In this case, we shouldn't be discriminatory against transgender people. Well, I'm coming out with my hands up on that. We shouldn't be discriminatory against anyone. But that's just the foot in the door. Then what happens is the door is swung wide open, and we enter a whole different stage of it where it's not about not being discriminatory against transgender people. It's about manipulating, particularly the young, because they're going to be the adults when this is supposed to come in, to be confused about their gender and question their gender when they weren't questioning it and they weren't confused before. I mean, the number of particularly girls in England who are going through this gender confusion now, it is increased by thousands of % in the last few years. And what's happening, I strongly suggest, is that the conditioning is underway towards this no gender human. So first you have two clear genders, and then you start fusing them and confusing them, and you have this transition period, which we're in now, and then at the other end of it, you come out with the no gender human, which is designed to be synthetic human, not biological.
Confusing. There are over 53 known gender assignments now that you can choose from. It's gotten to be that insane, and that's total chaos. That is tearing down all order of society, civility, civilization. Gender confusion. That's the first step. And you're right. That's where it's going.
And when you have professors of biology shouted down and, quote, investigated for the extraordinary, discriminatory, appalling statements, transphobic statements that men and women are biologically different, you're in a madhouse. I watched a video the other week, Jeff, in which it was at a university in America, and there was a big audience there, and there was a panel, and they were talking about gender. And this woman on the panel simply said this: men are overwhelmingly, generally taller than women. That's all she said. There was a walkout by a number of people, and the camera followed them out into the lobby, and they said, these walkout people, we're not staying in there and listening to that fascism. So, we've now got a definition of fascism, which is saying that men are generally taller than women. Now, like I said earlier, once you have this extraordinarily obvious and blatant and extreme shutting down of debate, you know it's the agenda for a simple reason. If you can't win the debate, and saying that men and women are not biologically different is actually impossible to win in a rational discourse, then you simply don't have the debate. You shut it down. Look at all these other areas where you can't have a debate, where Facebook and all these people, YouTube will censor you. They're censoring you.
They're calling it hate speech. Yeah.
They can't win the debate, so they shut it down. And these are all the red flags. What's the agenda? What can you have an opinion about?
Here's the story. They're labeling it as hate speech, as you well know. Google, YouTube now has hate speech banning. They're going overboard with it. Hate speech, according to Google and YouTube, is not allowed on YouTube. We remove content promoting violence or hatred against individuals or groups based on any of the following attributes. Now listen to these words and subjects. If you mention these things on YouTube, your video is gone. Any of these terms are instant banning. 1. Age, caste, disability, ethnicity. If you mention ethnicity, you're gone. Gender identity. Thank you, David Icke. Nationality, race, immigration status will get you banned. If you mention religion, sex or gender, sexual orientation, or victims of a major violent event and their kin, or even the status of a veteran, you will be banned for using hate speech. That's how they're doing it. And since it's a private company, they can pretty well set the rules the way they want. That's why the internet was set up with American tax dollars by so-called private industry, so it can be run outside the bounds of normal government. That's what they're doing.
That's exactly right. They've set the internet up so through algorithms they can dictate what people see and hear, and they are quite happy for the media that existed before that to be diluted and lose audience, because they want the audience on the internet, because the algorithms will then be the censor.
Pick it off so easily it's not even funny. You've seen that little clip of the actor playing George Orwell called A Final Warning. It's like 1:50 seconds. Have you seen that? You must have.
Yeah, I must have done. Yeah, it rings a bell.
I'm going to play this if you don't mind. The guy is superb. The actor playing Orwell, dying of tuberculosis. But here's the little.
I have seen it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Here we go.
1984 is, I believe, a quite terrifying masterpiece. So terrifying, in fact, I don't think I should like to read another like it.
I am not absolutely dissatisfied with it. I think it is a good idea, but the execution would have been better if I had not been under the influence of TB when I wrote it.
You once claimed that you have an ability to face unpleasant facts. Is that what you demonstrated in 1984 by drawing an accurate portrait of the future?
I think that allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. The sex instinct will be eradicated. We shall abolish the orgasm. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. But always there will be the intoxication of power. Always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
Now, unfortunately, I think we are, honestly, pragmatically speaking, past the time of being able to avert what is in store for us, simply because we've been disenfranchised, deplatformed is the current word, from all access to the mainstream media by which we might have reached out to the masses to help them better understand. You would have been able to address millions on major national television. But we've been excluded from that long ago by design, so we are now really without the means to communicate and make the argument clear. So that's tough. That's tough. So there we have the little bit from George Orwell. I think it's a classic, and he was correct. In fact, some of the things that I think you have said over the many, many years, Orwell would have just been extremely proud to have heard spoken. Well, he knew. He was a member of the... Go ahead.
So, I have a view of Orwell and Eric Blair's real name, of course, and Aldous Huxley and Brave New World.
Right.
From this perspective, yes, it was imagination to an extent. Yes, that saw the way the world was going to an extent. But I think that myself, that they have been so accurate that they knew more than just perceiving from their imagination. And I've quoted people in my books, insiders, over the years, who were describing the world today in 1969, for instance, which is 20 years after Orwell's book came out, who described the internet that no one was even talking about and how it would work, that was describing the fact that there was going to be mass movements of people, so that would basically transform societies by mass immigration, because they say that it's much easier to change society in basically a state of flux than it is to change a society where people have a sense of that society's history and that society's way of doing things. This was in 1969, and there's a stream of other things that have happened and that were described in detail. And this would kind of links us in to what we were talking about earlier. See, because there is this other agenda, which is operating deep from the shadows, not the people you see. There are two worlds, basically, coexisting here. One world is the mainstream of human society that we recognize as the world. And that has a certain level of knowledge. And knowledge beyond that is suppressed, marginalized, attempted to be discredited. Then there's this other world, which operates from the shadows, which has a much greater, more expanded level of knowledge, including, most importantly, the nature of reality, and therefore the technological and other potential for manipulation that the human society world has no idea is possible, or no idea of the actual reality it's experiencing. So I feel very strongly, given that I have other evidence of people decades ago who were describing what is happening now. They had some knowledge. In fact, they said they did, some of them, of this agenda, this other world agenda that operates on a completely different level of knowledge. And I can't believe that George Orwell and Aldous Huxley could have been so unbelievably accurate. I mean, the Brave New World chemical genetic manipulation is now becoming more and more obvious. And he was writing that in the 1930s. Yeah. I can't believe that it was just from their imagination when they were so accurate, given that other people have been able to say, this is what's going to happen because this is what we're going to do.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. They were in on the creation timeline. They knew. You're right, 100% correct. That wasn't just some imagined theme that they came up with. They knew. And they were trying, I guess, in their own way to warn those who have ears to hear. But it's all playing out, all of it. And the idea of two worlds, I think, is a very good one, because that is as succinct as we're going to get. There really is the world that most people see on a day-to-day basis. And then there is the other world that they never see, which is controlling that which they do see.
Exactly.
Very simple.
Exactly. And you know, you talking earlier about this censorship and hate speech. Well, it's clear more and more and more that the main prime advisors on what these internet giants censor and don't censor is coming from the Anti-Defamation League, which is a global hate group whose modus operandi is to get the public to hate their targets. So it's not about hate. It's not. I'll give you another example that it's not about hate. I've got a movie just come out called Renegade, and we had a premiere of it in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And the producers of the film were arranged for this premiere. And we were in a car heading for the Aero Theater in Santa Monica, which is owned by an organization called the American Cinematheque. And the phone rang in the back of the car. The producer was talking, and I was in the front of the car. He had his phone to his ear, and yet I still heard every word because this guy at the other end was screaming. And this was part of the conversation. And this is 2 hours before the film was supposed to be played and people would be there to watch it. It was 5 minutes before we were going to arrive at the theater for a technical run-through. And this was part of the conversation. Is this a film about David Icke? The producer says, well, yeah. Does it put him in a good light? Well, he comes over, well, yeah. We're not having a film then, basically. Now, if that film had demonized me, it would have run. And so it's not about hate. It's about getting people to hate what they perceive to be dangerous people who are putting out information that allows people to look at a situation from another angle. They don't want people seeing it from another angle, only one angle. Because where this is leading, and I have this phrase, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. If you don't know the outcome that we're being taken towards, then daily events appear random. They appear to have no pattern, no meaning. They're just random events. When you know where we're being taken, daily events become very clear. The stepping stone to the outcome becomes very clear. And what we're being taken towards, very relevant as we speak about 1984, is a situation where people never see or hear anything that the authorities don't want them to see and hear. Now, of course, to bring that situation about, free speech has to go. Because while people have free speech and freedom to speak and freedom of opinion, there's the freedom to challenge the official narrative. And therefore, and of course, we've seen the impact on so many people of the official narrative being challenged in the last 10 years or so. So free speech is being targeted because they cannot reach their goal of total control of what people see and hear. Thus, basically total control of perception, because we get our perceptions from information received, and our perceptions lead to our behavior. So if you control information that people receive, you control perception to a vast extent, and thus you control behavior, what people will do, won't do, challenge, not challenge, etc. And so this is what we're looking at step by step. They're even talking about it, Jeff. People like YouTube, they're talking about the next stage. They're using that language. And this stepping stone to a point where you will not see or hear anything.
Anything. Literally.
Which through AI and algorithms they can bring about.
That's correct. This is... it's all happening so quickly. And I've said that earlier, and I've said it many times, but it's true. They now know that they're past the point of worrying about any significant, meaningful pushback. They've got the public dumbed down through the government school system. They've got the public dumbed down through television, through sporting teams and sporting events and so-called music. My God, the people there's nothing proactive left in many people. There are exceptions, and many of them are listening to this program right now. But the idea of being proactive about life is anathema to the controllers. They want only reactive, Pavlovian, drooling, consuming idiots. And that's what they're going to end up with for the most part. And as you said in that interview that we have posted, they're going to sell this AI thing very cleverly. People will buy it. They'll suck it right up. They want to be smarter. They want to be the new advanced form of human being. This will be an easy con job, David. I don't see any problem at all for them.
Well, not a problem with a vast number of people, but more and more people are seeing it. There's no question. And true. Yeah,
but they don't have any access. They've got no access to speak. They're getting cut off. They're being
that's right.
The platform is the internet, so they're out.
I for one, I'm not giving up on this, and I know you're not.
No.
But this is the whole point, and you can see it. You can see this division in people who are awakening to, hold on a minute, what's happening, and those who are not, by their response to 5G. You've got people now who are leading campaigns and trying to highlight the fact that 5G is going to be a catastrophe, not just in terms of human health, but human psychology. And then you've got others who go, hey, I can download me movies in seconds. Isn't it great? And you can actually see in the reaction to 5G, this parting of the road between people who are starting to get it, or more than start to get it, some people, and those who have not got it at all.
I don't know how the percentage is going to eventually roll out, but there are very few people on the fence anymore. They're jumping off. Whichever side they're going to, I can't tell you what the odds are, what the percentages are, but there are few left in the middle compared to what it used to be. It's so blatant now, David, as you've made so clear for so long, that anyone with just a modicum of intelligent inquiry in their mind and their thinking and their consciousness cannot help but choose reality, that reality that we're speaking of, that we are being taken to the slaughterhouse, and we're not going to go quietly. That's the issue. The masses, they'll never know. They'll just go along to get along, and they'll think they're being original. It's like tattoos. I'm unique. I've got a tattoo. Give me a break.
Don't start me on tattoos. What's this about tattoos? It just makes you look as if you need a bath after a little while, doesn't it? Really,
it does.
You can't even see what the tattoo is supposed to be.
Correct. No, it's a form of self-mutilation to gain peer approval and acceptance. It's all very rudimentary. But again, I go back to what go ahead, David. Go ahead.
That's what I was just going to say. I see it in football. I used to be a professional footballer, and in those days, I played in the 70s. You wouldn't see a tattoo on a football. No. But now you watch the football matches, not just in Britain, but around the world. And the players are just covered in tattoos. And, Beckham, of course, David Beckham. the footballer who played in America, was kind of a role model for this. He's covered in them. And it's like the desire to be part of a group, which I would describe as a herd, is amazing. And the thing is about this parting of the ways and this waking up. What is waking up? It is simply breaking through the program, the perceptual program. People are waking up from the program. The program is there to impose and install a perception of reality, what I call the postage stamp consensus, for an entire lifetime. That's what the education system's about, the media's about, all the rest of it.
Cradle to grave, you bet.
From cradle to grave. And this waking up is simply people breaking through the program perception, so they start to process information, the same information, in a completely different way, and thus come to different perceptions about what that information means. And of course, the more alternative ways, alternative information and ways of looking at a situation there are, the more this program perception is going to be challenged and broken up, because people start to see, hey, there's another way of looking at this, and it makes more sense than what I've been told. So this is where the censorship comes in, because a lot of this censorship, I say now, is actually desperation. It's desperation. It's trying to put the genie back in the bottle.
It's ruthless desperation. I agree.
To help people to awaken.
Yeah. It's they're not taking any prisoners with this. It's just all out. They're in a panic. They're really worried that people are going to figure it out. There are people figuring it out, but those people are being, again, disenfranchised with the ability to reach out. YouTube is just crushing. Channel after channel after hundreds, thousands of channels have vanished now. That people, good people, well-meaning, intelligent people, were manning and presenting, men and women, excellent videos, pointing out all of the things that we've been talking about tonight and much more. Heroic people, and they have been squashed. We're going to have to find another way. Now, the other issue is freedom of speech. America is the only country on the world stage that I know of that has a First Amendment, the right to free speech. There's another linkage to that isn't talked about much. The right to free speech is intrinsically related and attached to the right to freedom of thought. When you become afraid to speak something, your mind will stay away from that subject. It's like you get burned on a stove, and you just, rather than go back and do it properly, you just stay away from the stove. It sounds silly, but that's how it works. Take away the right to free speech, and you are going to quash a great deal of freedom of thought. It's going to happen, and they know it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. What kind of happens in this process, I would say, is that there's a line that in Orwell's writings about while I can say basically that 2 and 2 equals 4, that it's basically freedom. I'm paraphrasing here. But saying 2 and 2 equals 5 destroys that. And so when you see things like men and women are not biologically different, that is 2 and 2 equals 5. And what we're seeing is the pressure on people to accept or take the consequences of not accepting that 2 and 2 equals 5. Now, the psychological process that then happens is you're saying 2 and 2 equals 4, and you know 2 and 2 equals 4. But then the pressure comes in, so you start to say, or at least accept and not challenge the fact that 2 and 2 equals 5. What then happens in the psychological process is to a large extent, for your own self-respect, you start to accept that 2 and 2 equals 5, because you really don't want to face the fact that you are accepting a nonsense out of intimidation of not speaking a truth. And so in the end, you come over through this process and through other psychological means to actually believe what you formerly knew wasn't true. This is the way it works. It's a more extreme version of anything for a quiet life. I'll accept this because I don't want to take the consequences of not accepting it. So the more they can hand out extreme consequences of abuse, censorship, and marginalization, the more that people will, anything for a quiet life, accept what they're being told to accept. And I would say this, and it's where I'm coming from. I know it's where you're coming from. If you are thinking, if I say this, what are the consequences? When you know saying it is the right thing. If you say, if I do this, what are the consequences? Even though you know doing it is the right thing, then you have given your mind away. You have given yourself away to that whose consequences you fear. And what I say, and people are going to see this, by the way, I've got a book I've just finished, it's about to go to print. People will see when that comes out. I am not interested in questioning what are the consequences of me doing this. They will take care of themselves. My question from a bigger point of view, I would say to anyone who's perusing possible consequences, what are the consequences of you not saying it? What are the consequences of you not doing it? Those consequences, not just for you, but for your kids and grandkids, are far, far more extreme than any short-term consequences you may have for doing what you know to be right and saying what you know to be right now. Forget the consequences. The consequences of not doing it are much greater. Forget the consequences short term. Just say and do what you know to be right.
It's all about using fear of consequences to cow the masses. That's what they do. Quite right. That's a very important point that you've made, and I hope everyone listening will keep that in mind. Do what is right. Don't worry about consequences. Speak your mind. Help those who want to be helped. When you run into somebody who doesn't want to hear it, you might as well not waste your time. Find someone who does want to hear reality, or your version of reality. Find someone who's still got an open mind. They're out there, lots of them. They just need to be connected with. We can't get to them through the mainstream media. We know that. Talk about a dumbing down machine. There it is. Total subservience. And we talked about this gender thing. There's another little thing going on here. I don't want to get into it beyond mentioning it, but little boys are dressing up as what they're calling little drag queens.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite the internet sensation now. Can you imagine, David, what their parents must be like to allow this? It's damn near as evil as buying a 6-year-old a cell phone. You do that to your 6-year-old, and you've lost your child. Goodbye, gone, done.
But this drag queen stuff with kids is all part of this, of course, this gender fusion, this gender confusion. That's what it's all part of. In Britain, I don't know whether it's happening in America, but it's certainly in Britain. They're having drag artists go into school to read them stories about transgender.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
And that's the other thing, I was talking on a media interview in Israel this week, funnily enough, because there's lots of people in Israel who actually do not reflect Benjamin Netanyahu. He was pointing out some of the things that were happening in Israel. And I said, I travel the world all the time. What you're describing in Israel is happening everywhere. And because it's a global agenda, therefore it's happening everywhere. And this transgender agenda is absolutely happening everywhere. And you're absolutely right. Where are the parents? And because and there are parents who are challenging this in Britain, but they get attacked by other parents, you know. You know, if this is happening in school, get them out of school. Get them out of school, because
what is the life of your child worth to you?
You're going to lose your child.
Right.
You're going to lose your child not just through the cell phone. You're going to lose your child through what they are indoctrinated to believe at school, which is getting more and more extreme. All these things we've been talking about over so many years that are going on, and now breaking the surface where they can be seen because they're so blatant, because they have to be. Because if you've been manipulating under the radar to transform human society in a certain way, at some point that transformation has to show itself. Otherwise, you're not going to transform it. And we're now at that point. This is why it's becoming so obvious and so blatant and so extreme. And it's helping, to an extent, people to wake up, because they can't deny it. Well, anyone with a smear of intelligence can't deny what they're seeing in front of them anymore. It's not just a theory.
Not a theory, no. It is burgeoning, and I go back to your earlier statement about 2 planets. This is a planetary-wide drive, a push, a mass mind conditioning program that's underway now. Everywhere you look, every country, every society, if they're hooked up to the internet, if they've got their it doesn't matter. It's going on everywhere. And I'd like to urge all of you to keep this idea of 2 planets, one visible, our world, and one that controls us and creates what they want us to see as our world. That's the truth of the bigger picture. Understand that. And read David's books, listen to his lectures. He's been out there for 35 years doing this. I don't know how it was that you saw it all so clearly, but you did, and it's all coming to pass at breakneck speed. Again, when they saw no pushback, or little pushback, or controllable pushback, and when they realized how to create the opposition and run the opposition, they realized total control was in their hands. They had it. They had it done. Created opposition. Yeah. Wow.
This is the point that so many people miss, is they see some body or some group for something, and they see another person or group against it, and they say, well, they're for it and they're against it. But if you're going to control, say, a football match, it's no good controlling one side. If you want to know what this result's going to be before the first ball is kicked, it's no good being controlling one side. You're going to influence the match. You're not going to know the outcome before it starts, but you control both sides and the referee, and you know the score before the game starts. This is the way they work. So there are so many genuine people, for instance, in the alternative media, as an example, who are trying to get this information out for very genuine reasons. And there are other people in the alternative media who are actually just place people for the controlled opposition of the very force that is behind what they appear to be opposing. And, I see this a lot where people have no-go areas where they simply won't go into certain areas that absolutely need to be gone into because they're fundamental to what's happening, but they won't go there.
That's the giveaway. And those people also that appear overnight, they're all of a sudden here. Where'd they come from? Doesn't matter. Boy, they're good. So there's another indicator. Yeah,
they appear from nowhere and then often disappear. And you've been on this road along as long as I have. And, when you see what's going on in the world, walking away is not an option. And I see these people, they become flavor of the month for like a year, 2 years or so, and then they disappear. And I'm thinking, where have you gone? What are you doing? You can't just say, oh, this is happening, we must do something about it, and then disappear.
No. All of you out there, I urge you again to read David's books. Watch for what's the new one titled, David?
Well, the new one's going to be called The Trigger, but this movie that's been made about my life and work,
Renegade.
Renegade, it's available via davidicke.com now. People can watch it now if they like, and it's been very, very well received, and it's a great introduction to this information.
Please don't forget that. davidicke.com. Go look at David's movie about his life. It's the information there is timeless, and it is more essential now than ever. All right, my friend, you take care. Have a wonderful next week, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you, mate. See you soon. Bye.
Okay. Good night. All right, that's our program tonight. David Icke, and we'll be back tomorrow night in 21 hours. Take care. Have fun, and we'll talk soon.